Hi, and welcome to this new segment that I call 10 Minutes with Althea. Thank you for taking the time out of your day today and joining me to learn just a little bit more just about yourself, or maybe somebody you love. Now, before we get into it, as always, I need to make sure that you understand that this is to be for information purposes only. If you are experiencing pain or taking any medication, before you change your treatment or change your medication, please consult your medical provider. Now, let's get into it. Today we're going to be talking about sciatica. Now, if you've ever had sciatica pain, it is excruciating. It is a pain that runs from your hip down to your toe. It can be on the left side or the right side, and it can be caused from a pinched nerve or a misalignment in the spine or an actual damage to the sciatic nerve. But to be sure which one it is, always, of course, consult a true medical professional. Now, what we're talking about today is the emotional side of this. One of the biggest reasons why we're talking about the emotional side is because often when we do not pay attention to an imbalance that is happening in our life or within ourselves, it can start manifesting as a physical ailment. And so with that, please pay attention to your body. See what you notice about yourself. Now, not everything that we talk about today is going to pertain to you, so please feel free to listen to them and then make that decision. Now, I do have my notes with me, so I'm going to be using them for some guidance, but we're going to discuss this throughout the way. Number one, let's talk about the direction in your life. Are you heading a direction that is good for you, or have you been heading down a path that is not really what you desire, but instead of dealing with it, you're kind of suppressing it, maybe ignoring it? One of the things that you need to pay attention to is the direction in which you are heading. Maybe number two is taking the blame because we don't know how to stand up for ourselves. It is not always easy being able to stand up for ourselves, especially if we have never been taught, or we have been condemned for doing so in the past. One of the things that is very difficult is learning how to do that, and when we should. Now, number three is expressing your anger in different ways. Now, isn't that kind of interesting? Instead of being able to go to a boxing class or an exercise class or go for a walk or be able to truly express our feelings through our words, we choose to express it and punish ourselves in this way. Number four, communication is very important to you, but often you feel misunderstood. Now, I know this happens to a lot of us, and this particular thing can kind of interfere and cause a lot of imbalances. Sometimes when we're trying to communicate how we feel, it's often confused and misled. Sometimes people don't understand what our point is. Being able to kind of work through this and be able to understand how you're feeling really is getting to a safe spot that you feel that you can communicate how you feel. Number five, you feel like you have a lot to share and express, but without an outlet to do this and in a safe spot, it often creates anger and rage. Now, isn't that kind of interesting how when we're not able to express stuff, it really does turn inward? So keep paying attention to that. Number six, you feel indecisive about what you want and how to achieve it. Now, this can play a big role in a lot of things in our life, but specifically on how we move forward and handle things. Sometimes there are situations in our life where we feel fear in moving forward. And because we're unsure about it, it can keep us isolated. Now, being able to work through that feeling of isolation can help us be able to walk forward with confidence. Number seven, the fear of money and the future and not having enough of what you need. Now, a lot of us have been taught along the way that our needs are really not that important and that it doesn't matter what we don't have right now. Sometimes being able to be raised with this belief can cause a lot of issues in our life, and it is up to each one of us to decide what that is and how we're going to proceed forth on taking care of it. Number eight, super self-efficient, but underneath longing, really longing to be cared for. Sometimes we seem so self-sufficient that nobody thinks we need help. We don't appear to need or want help. Sometimes it can be very challenging to let people in to help us or even ask for help. And so please always take that into consideration. That would also fall under the lines of not being able to say no. Okay. Number 9, concerns, anxiety, and dread regarding your expression of your creative capabilities. Now, isn't that kind of interesting? Expression of your creative capabilities. Now, it's always very interesting to me what this means, because sometimes people can be two-minded about this. One side being conservative and wanting to conform and go along with everybody, but the other side of wanting to express how you really feel and what you really desire. So kind of keep that in mind, how you're really feeling. Number 10 is disregarding your own desires. Now, how many times have we done that? I know that I am guilty of doing that at times. One of the most challenging things when we start into our healing is that we can get overwhelmed with the amount of stuff that really needs to be taken care of. Sometimes we have a lot of repressed rage or anger, and we don't know how to deal with it. One of the ways that I have been able to find has been the most efficient and effective for me and for others is being able to utilize the emotion code. I've been certified in the emotion code now since, well, I guess for about 8 years, 10 years now. Yes, 10 years. And it has done wonders for working through some of my childhood traumas. And it's also allowed me to help aid others in working through some of their events. Now, we can't go back and change the past, but that doesn't mean it didn't happen. And it doesn't mean that we didn't experience it in some sort of a hindering way. Sometimes it can really hold us back and cause us to self-sabotage, not wanting to ask for help, or not knowing where to go for help. So I would suggest this. Reach out to me through Messenger, Althea Mitchell, and see if we can't set up an emotion code session for you. Being able to work through it and utilizing the emotion code allows us to identify trapped emotions that get stuck in the physical body. By being able to remove them, you do feel somewhat of an emotional release and relief, which is what we're really after in all of this emotional trauma. We want to be able to feel better. We want to be able to express our happiness and gratitude towards one another. Being able to get rid of the trapped emotions that are plaguing us allows us to be able to do that. So what happens when you choose to do an emotion code session? Well, I would encourage you to pick 1 or 2 things to work on from the beginning. Being able to work on 1 or 2 things, there's a wide variety of ways that you can work on it. Causing, contributing, believing. So working through the different aspects of 1 or 2 items keeps you in focus on what you're willing to do and what you're able to do. It doesn't allow you to run off on tangents that sometimes we use as a way to disguise what really needs to be worked on. Number 2 is I would give yourself some gentleness and compassion during this process. Being able to work through our emotional traumas are not always easy, but it is something that as we do it, it gets easier. Now, one of the advantages of being able to use it and utilize the emotion code is when we start healing, we then have a different perspective. Being able to have a different perspective allows many changes in our lives to happen. It allows us to be able to move forward. Now, the third thing I want you to keep in mind is you are not alone. There have been many people that have just been emotionally traumatized throughout our lives. Now, as we start working through it, you have to remember that it's your choice. Maybe before you couldn't do something about it, but now I'm encouraging you to let you know that you can. Choose to be able to work through it and know that as you do, you will be able to feel some relief. I hope you enjoy these segments, and I look forward to seeing you next time. And remember, you are worth it. So reach out today, and until then, we'll see you next time.